we'll go there. Okay, so I'm recording and I'm going to share my screen. So I think somewhere I do that. I saw it earlier. So bear with me. Okay. Actually, hold on. We're gonna stop. We're gonna stop that for a second because I got to get it.
It feels good to be back in a classroom.
Does it? Okay.
Yeah.
You like all this? So let's see. Slideshow from beginning. There we go. And then, no, that's not gonna work. I don't know. Let's see if I can make it work. Escape. Right, so did you see that slideshow when I pulled it up?
No, I haven't seen anything yet.
Okay. Oh, I gotta let somebody in. Still can't hear anything. Okay. All right. I'm still I'm letting someone else back in. Okay. All right. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. I guess that's how you do it. I don't know. So we're going to try this. I don't know if I can. Okay, so can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so some of you may or may not be aware, hopefully you are, and it's been talked about in your other classes, but there is a pass-fail policy that has been, I guess, come out since the coronavirus and everything like that. So what this is, if you feel as though you're not going to make an A or a B and you don't want like a C or D, you can let me know and I can give you a credit or no credit. And that's really all it is. If you're about going to make an A or a B, I would say go ahead and take the grade because
right.
it help your GPA. But when it comes to, you know, if you're kind of, maybe you're not getting the grade that you wanted, then it probably would be a good idea to do the credit, no credit. But I will try my best to stay on top of this and try to let people know, like, uh-oh, I think you need to take the credit, no credit. You know, I won't let anybody
set anybody up.
I'll try not to. So that's that policy. I'm going to send that out in the email that we'll be following up after this. The presentation dates. So these are the presentation dates, and it is Tuesday, April 21st at 4:30, Thursday, April 23rd at 5:30, and Tuesday at April 28th at 4:30. So I kind of changed it up because I know people have work schedules and maybe you're still going to work. I have no idea. Maybe 5:30 feels better. I just kind of put it out there. We'll see how it goes. In the email that I send out, there will be registration links and you will register for whichever day works for you. And that's the day that you'll present. And we will present using this Zoom. So between then and now, if we need to have some technology meetup so that we can work the kinks out of our technology, I can set that up. And those can be super brief just to make sure that your stuff is working, that it's doing what you need it to do, and we'll be able to capture those presentations. So with that being said, and I'll take questions, we'll talk about like the how this is all going to work and everything at the end. So really what I need to dive in with you guys is the macro structure. So I've been saying this a lot, probably, you know, for the beginning of our semester anyways, talking a lot about macro structure and what that looks like and what it should feel like. And so I know that I've said this to you before, it's very circular. And so to be mindful that whenever you're thinking about your presentation, you should always be thinking in terms of starting at the beginning and making sure you come all the way back around in the beginning. So we're going to just walk through it. This is not the most exciting PowerPoint. I apologize, but it gets the job done. So you start with your attention getter, And so this is where you get the attention of your audience, right? You have a quote, a rhetorical question like, how many people here, like to drink soda? You don't really want an answer. It's just a rhetorical question, or, that sort of thing. Who's ever been in a fight with your best friend? That sort of stuff. It could be a bold statement. It could be a joke. Maybe you tell a very brief, appropriate, classroom appropriate joke, or it's a fascinating fact or statistic, okay? It's just something to get your attention. Think about it as something like, if you're surfing on the internet, what would make you click on a story? Why would you click on that? Because what caught your attention? The second thing is listener relevance. And listener relevance is why should you care? So it answers the question, why should your audience care? So again, it's maybe it's something that starts off like, if you're like me, you probably have experienced this, or the really, cheap and easy way to do this is you can just say, you should care about this because. So that's the best way to kind of let me know when I'm listening to your speech as the person that's grading your speech. When I hear you should care about this, I'm like, there's their listener relevance. So I'm like, all right. The third part is speaker credibility. So if you notice in our speech so far, I haven't said your attention getter is, you don't start with your name, right? Right now you're getting your audience's attention, and then you're connecting them to your topic. And then at speaker credibility is where you introduce yourself. So let's look at what that looks like. So speaker credibility, this is where you're going to say, and I want you to say exactly this. My name is, so if I was doing this, my name is Lisa Weimer, and I'm an intro to communication student at UALR. That's where you introduce yourself. And forever and ever and ever, here's a piece that you should take with you, is never, ever, ever start any presentation with, hello, my name is. Gotcha. Always start it with an attention getter. You can forget the listener relevance. You can forget a lot of things. Get your audience's attention, then introduce yourself. And that is the mark of a true public speaker. After you've given us your credibility, so let me talk a little bit more what I mean by credibility. So you've introduced yourself, but you're also making yourself a credible source because you're a communication student, meaning you've been studying communication. So this upcoming presentation is going to be based on you integrating what you've learned, with your past experiences. And so therefore, this is what makes you a credible person to give this presentation. So it's your name, and then what makes you the expert, basically. Then you're going to do your thesis statement. So thesis statements in a presentation are a little bit different than when we write them for your papers. Here's where students really start to feel uncomfortable, because we've been taught so much to stay away from I statements and I, and saying the word you, and you write in this kind of passive voice and to sound more scholarly. But when you talk, it's very different. So a thesis statement is literally going to be, today I'm going to tell you about, and you're going to tell me, what is it you're talking about? So this speech has been altered, so it's not about service learning, because I didn't want folks going out trying to get their service learning done and getting sick. So you're going to do your speech about the paper that you just wrote, your interpersonal paper. Now, if it's too personal and you want to change your topic, that's totally fine, okay? But that's going to give you a feel on how this speech is going to go down. So
is it still going to be 7 minutes?
Yes. So I don't know, I've never done it like this. So, but the max time you have is 9 minutes. So that's a long time.
Yeah.
It's a long
time.
So
it's 7. I'm like, 7 minutes.
Yeah. So yeah, the meat of this speech will be when you have to tell your story. So folks that are, and we're going to get there, so we'll get to it. But your thesis statement is literally going to be you saying, today I'm going to tell you about, and so I gave some examples. Today I'm going to tell you about an argument between myself and my roommate. Or today I'm going to tell you about a conflict that caused me to quit my job. Whatever this conflict is, you're just going to say it. That's it. It's simple. Very simple. You don't have to make a big flowery thesis statement like when we write. The next thing we're going to move into is the preview. So be very mindful. The preview is different than the thesis statement. So the thesis statement is very simple. What I'm going to tell you about. Preview is basically mapping out how you're going to tell it to us. So this is where you give you give an overview of your speech that includes your main points. So this example that I have here on the PowerPoint is literally what I did is I added sequential verbiage like first, then, and finally in front of the actual main points taken from the outline of the speech. So it reads, first, I will give you the case background of my conflict. Then I will share the communication principle and 2 concepts connected to my story. Finally, I will provide recommendations for how I can improve my communication. So there's nothing special to it. You don't have to expand upon that. That's all I'm looking for, is you're going to tell me what chunks. So if you were going to give a speech and this speech had actually 5 main points, right? So maybe one day if you're presenting your dissertation, you might have 5 main points. You're going to give me a brief overview of where are we going today. Okay, but we only have 3 main points. All right, so then very importantly, you're going to have your first transition. So your first transition, and it's going to look like, and it's going to sound like, so moving on. Now that we've talked about this, we're going to talk about that, right? So now that I've shared my story, let's move into the analysis. Or very, very simply, you can say, moving on. Just something that lets us know that we are changing gears, right? So this is roadmap language that you need to include in your speech in order to let folks know where we're going. Unlike when we talk to each other, we can change topics very quickly, but this helps us know, so we don't get confused and like, wait, what is she talking about? I don't know. So moving on, right? We're moving into the main point 1. So main point 1 is going to be where you tell the story of your conflict. So you've already done this in your paper, okay? So be mindful, if you're a natural storyteller, sometimes these can get really big and you feel like it has to all be there. So one thing that as a public speaker that we are taught not to do is always practice your stories. Never tell a story in front of an audience that you've never told before. So always practice. I know it's your story, I know you know it, but you have to be mindful of that time. Okay, 9 minutes is a long time, but if you spend 8 of it telling us the story, you're gonna have a minute to finish your speech. So this is where you get to decide, you can make sure your story makes sense, and then you focus on what we need to know, not what is nice to know, okay? So you don't have to give us everything, but you gotta give us everything important. So after that, we have our content that goes into that first main point, and that you will see that in your outline that's on Blackboard. And then we have our second, listener relevance, okay? So let me make sure this is not, I want to make sure this makes sense. It doesn't go content, it goes main, let me go backwards. Okay, I missed something. So main point 1, and then you're going to go to your listener relevance. And the reason we're doing that again is we are re-hooking everybody in to your speech. Okay, so before you dive into your story, so you're going to go, today I'm going to tell you about, let me go back to that main point, right? So, first, I'm going to tell you the story of my conflict, right? And then you're going to give us like another rhetorical question or a fascinating fact, right? Or statistics say that, people who are best friends should never try to live together, something like that you're like, oh, let's focus back into this.
So this should be different from our first listener relevance.
Yes. So you just think about it like, when you're listening to something and maybe it goes on, like, I've been in a lot of Zoom meetings and I start chasing rabbits in my head, and then someone says something to kind of get my attention again, it really helps. So that's what this is. Just kind of getting their attention again. And then you're going to have, after you go through your content and you tell the story, then again, you're going to have another transition. simple, just, you know, moving on, right? Or now that I've told you my story, let's dive into the analysis, right? Now that I've told you what I told you, now let's talk about what I'm going to tell you. That's it. Nothing too fancy. If it feel, and here's the thing, transitions feel weird. If you've never done them, it feels very weird, but it feels really good for your audience. All right, so then you move into main point 2, and main point 2 is going to start off with this sentence, and like you literally will say this. There is a communication principle and 2 concepts connected, well, to my story. There needs to be a word, the word my in there. So remember, your communication principles are found in the survival guide, and your concepts are found in the textbook. So the survival guide is also on Blackboard. I can't remember the page numbers off the top of my head, but that's where you find those communication principles. Remember, there are things like communication is learnable and communication is irreversible. Those are the communication principles. The concepts are the vocabulary words in the textbook, okay? Citing your sources, I'm giving you a guide right here, and I'm going to post exactly what's on this slide into Blackboard so that it's not hard for you to find. You don't have to rewatch this entire video to get to it. So the survival guide, you're going to write the sentence, according to the UALR survival guide, comma, 2020, the definition of whatever it is, if it's nonverbal communication, means, and you're going to tell us the definition. So I know I said you're going to write that sentence, but you're going to say that sentence, okay? When it calls for that in your speech and that outline, you're going to say those words. Just like with the textbook, when you find a concept that is connected to your conflict, you're going to say that when it's appropriate. When you get to that part in your speech, you're going to say the words out loud. According to the University of Minnesota Libraries Publishing 2019, the definition of means XYZ. Okay, I think I even got that. So here's one thing, be very mindful, and I just did it. So it's so easy to do. Remember, communication, the principles, the foundational principles, and the ethical implications come from the survival guide. Everything else, just the vocabularies, the concepts, come from the textbook. And I just flipped them. So it's very easy to do. Just be mindful, because if you flip them, I can give you partial credit, but it doesn't, I can't give you all the credit, okay? All right, so then we move on, and then of course we have our listener relevance, right? So that's to get our attention again. And then we have a transition, right? So moving on, and then we have our last main point, and our last main point is going to be our recommendations. So you're going to say, based on my experience, I can use communication concepts and ethical implications to improve my communication and help improve my interpersonal relationships. That's going to be the first sentence of your main point 3. So just remember again, communication principles in the survival guide, concepts in the textbook. All right, so you have another listener relevance, right? Hook us back in, content, right? And then your transition. So for moving into your last transition, so right here, so your last transition, you can say the words, in conclusion. These are magical words, let me tell you. So as a coach that I work with TED speakers for my TED event, a lot of times they would do their entire talk in their rehearsals, and they would say their clincher, and then they would everybody just kind of sit there and like, oh, are they done? Oh wait, you're done. Okay, clap. So I coached them. I said, when you get to right before you end, like you're going to say your last part of your talk, I need you to say the words like, I'm going to leave you with, or, you know, in conclusion. That way we know that you're going to be ending. And let me tell you, it works, because we no longer are going, oh, okay, you're done. Oh, what it signaled to us is it's time to wrap up. We're wrapping up. So don't forget that. And then you're going to restate your thesis. So remember our thesis statement, today I'm going to tell you about, you change it to past tense, today I told you about, right? Today I told you about a fight that I had with my mom, whatever it is. And then you're going to summarize those main points. So you're not going to add anything extra. You're going to go back to that preview and change it to past tense. So first I told you the case background of my conflict. Then I shared the communication principles and 2 concepts connected to my story. Finally, I provided recommendations for how I can improve my communication. So nothing brand new. You're not having to make anything new. You're going to get that preview and you're going to change it to past tense, and that will be the the summarizing of your main points, not your restate thesis as it says in this PowerPoint. All right, then you're going to move to your clincher. So this is really important, and it's a big reason why I chose to have those arrows that kind of go around, you know, make it a circular type thing when you think about putting together a speech. So your clincher needs to be something that kind of ties it all up into a nice little bow, and it's related to your attention getter, okay? So maybe you started with the first part of a joke, you go through the entire part of your you go through your entire speech, and then now you're going to deliver the punchline of that joke, right? Whatever it is, it needs to be part of, it needs to be connected to that attention getter. Okay, so it's not just something, you know, it's not a wild card. It is related. Okay, I don't know why that's there, but anyway, so your clincher, right? It's connected to your attention getter. It's something, it's very relevant, right? Ties it up into a nice, neat little package. So let's talk about the overview of this speech. So it is 165 points. It might say 175 somewhere else, but that's because I had to modify the assignment and make the rubric work. So there was a couple things that I had took out, but it still works. I think it will work. This is a major assignment, so this has to be completed in order to pass this class. Your speech needs to be between 6 to 9 minutes. So again, we've never done this type of speech. So if you hit 5 minutes, but you've hit everything, it's going to be okay. Okay. You cannot go past 9 minutes, however. So that will be a hard stop. And believe it or not, there are students every semester that I have to stop, and then they're done. And so, but it doesn't mean it's over. It doesn't mean that like you failed the class because you went over 9 minutes. So if you go over, here's the deal. If you go over your time limit, you'll be asked to stop, but then you'll redo your speech. You'll redo your speech by recording your own video in front of your own computer, like you did your positive communication assignment, okay? And that's the same with if you get a grade that you aren't happy with from your speech, you could submit a redo of your speech to get a better grade. Okay, so it's not all over. It's not game over if you really mess up. Let's see. So you gotta present during one of the scheduled meeting times. So you can't just skip right to the video that you do right in front of your computer. You have to attend one of the meeting times. You are encouraged to have a PowerPoint, and I'm kind of going back and forth on that one. We'll figure it out. We'll figure out what we should do. I think that you definitely need the practice, like should create a PowerPoint. It helps you think about your presentation. But we'll talk about how to do that so that we can see you and the PowerPoint at the same time. And so I need to play with Zoom a little bit more. Those again are the dates that we will be presenting, and I will be sending the links out through email. All right, so that's that part. Let me show you on Blackboard.
I have a question real quick.
Yes.
Will you have our case backgrounds graded by then so we can know like if that's a good Yeah, okay, because I don't even know if mine's that good.
Okay, so I have it in student view. So this is, we're looking at exactly what you can see and nothing extra. So this is unit 3. And so this is just informational, like make sure you have your paper completed before you start this.
Hold on, I don't think
See it?
it's popped up yet.
Oh,
I still have the slideshow.
oh, okay. Oh, it's paused my screen. Okay, resume share. Okay. Let's see.
Okay, I think it's switching now. I think maybe.
Screen is paused. Resume. I don't want that one. I want a new share. Yeah, that's what it's doing. Okay, it wants me to pick a new one. Okay. All right. So
There we go.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Move that. So this is just informational, like make sure you've completed your paper before you start this unit. Here is, I think, I'm not sure, did I share this with you guys already, this TED Talk with the intelligent pros?
Not in Blackboard, unless you did in class one day. I wasn't there.
Okay, if you haven't seen it, watch it. He does a great job of, it's not perfect, but he definitely has macro structure. So you can tell he's very structured. He, you know, he has an attention getter. He provides a rationale why you should care. He seems very credible. His visual aids are very effective. They're a value add. They're not just there to be there. You know, he seems like he would be the same person on and off stage. And he's very mindful of his time limit, and you can tell he practiced a lot. So this is definitely one of my favorite TED Talks. And so it's not very long at all either. It's not like the normal 20-minute long one. And so the next thing you see is a discussion board, and this is a macro structure. So you will find your own TED Talk that you like, and you share it, and then you're going to tell us that you think is a great example of macro structure, and you're going to tell us what makes it a strong example of macro structure, meaning that has an attention getter, it has transitions, they are really easy to understand where they're going. It's not just someone getting up and talking, you know, that sort of thing. They will not be perfect. None of them will be perfect, but you will know when you see it that someone is doing macro structure. And so you're going to pick up on maybe someone does some amazing transitions, and that's what you've noticed. Or maybe they did a really good job of staying very structured and to their main points. But that will be what you point out. Okay, so you're going to share that, and then you're going to respond to a classmate's TED Talk, and then it's done. Simple assignment. Then you have a chapter 10 reading assignment, and I have the due dates there. You answered those 4 questions. And then there's some past informative speeches. These will be a little bit different from yours because they're based on service learning. So don't get hung up on that, wow, they're talking about their volunteer hours when you're not going to be talking about your volunteer hours, okay? But it does show you how they've used that outline. Here's the PowerPoint. And it's a quick video on like PowerPoint do's and don'ts. You can submit a copy of your PowerPoint. And then the final speech outline is due April 16th. And then your final informative speech video. So we're going to talk about how you will submit that. I may be able to submit that for you. So don't get hung up on this right here, right now, for the time being. And then you have a self-assessment. Like after watching your own speech, you know, you're going to answer these 10 questions. Let's see. I think I put, this is important. So here's the instructions and outline right here that you need to pay attention to. So I have a Word document. If you have Microsoft on your computer, go ahead and use that. You can type into it. If you don't have Microsoft, that's why I always put a PDF of the same assignment so that you can still access it. All right. So what questions so far? I'm going to stop the share so we can come back. There we go.
I think that was it as far as like the final like outline or whatever. I think that was one of the assignments, like your final draft. Like, is that what the PDF is like an outline of how you want us to do that?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And there's a Word document as well, so that if you have Word, you can just download that to your computer and type right into that.
Oh, cool.
So, but yeah, they're exactly the same. They're there for you to use. Let's see. So, okay, hold on. Okay. Oh, it finally unmuted. Okay, I can unmute people so they can ask questions. That might be helpful, right?
Hey, Dr. Weimer, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yes.
Okay, so are you wanting the PowerPoint with the speech, like the day that you give the speech, are you wanting the PowerPoint to go with it?
So I'm going to do some testing to see how that will look and if we can do that. Because I don't want it to be just, hey, we're all staring at your PowerPoint. I want to be able to see you when you give your speech. So
Okay.
Yeah, I need to tinker around with it to see if I can maybe do a split screen and that way we can see both. Does that make sense? So if I can't do it, I still want you to get the 30 seconds in the PowerPoint. Somebody's all right.
Okay.
And so if I can't make it work, then we'll do the presentations without a PowerPoint, but you will just submit one. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. What other questions?
Yes.
There we go.
Dr. Weimer,
Yes.
I guess I'm confused. What is the
Okay. Hold on. Your phone's it's cutting up. So yeah, ask your question.
what is the? It says your complete your interpersonal paper. Is this about the paper that we just did?
Yeah. So you're gonna do your speech based on that paper.
Okay, because I know we turned a video in with that one, so this is the same thing but just different.
No. So the positive communication video was about someone who influenced your communication in a positive way. The interpersonal paper is about a conflict that you were supposed to write about.
Right.
Okay.
Now, did we not turn that in?
Well, that
I guess
that would have been a paper that you've already submitted that you're going to use as a guide to complete this speech.
Okay, so we take that paper and adjust it to what you're wanting here. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, okay.
And make sure you use that outline. So even though you've written the paper and this is obviously your story and you know it very well, make sure that you use that outline so that you can get all those points. So one thing I really didn't drive home and I really meant to was the fact that you saw all those listener relevance and transitions that are all throughout that speech. Every single one of those are worth 5 points. So if you count those, I mean, I think it's like 20 points a piece. So that's, I mean, you're looking at potentially, if you left out all your transitions and listener relevance, you're only left 40 points on the table. So every year I have someone go, well, okay, well, I'll get up and talk about, because we usually do service learning, and they'll go, I'll just get up and talk about my service learning, but they don't follow the outline. So I literally, they can tell the story of their service learning. I can give them those 5 points, but there's nothing else I can give them because they didn't follow that structure. So make sure you use that outline. And if you have questions about that outline, as always, you can text me. And if we need to set up a telephone call or a Skype meeting or a Zoom meeting, we can do that. What other questions? And I'm going to set up, in addition to the 3 speech times, I'm going to set up a technology time so we can we can mess around with the technology and make sure it's working. So if you were unable to hear me when you logged in through your computer or your phone or whatnot, let's, I would definitely plan on trying to get with me when I put that out there so that we can work out the technology. And we might do a couple of those just so everyone, we can see everyone and we can record these properly. Okay?
It's good.
All right. So that's all I have. I don't want to keep you guys forever. And because also this could be a really long, a really long video and I want people to watch it. So, all right. Good job, you guys. I'm glad to see you all.
Yes.
And that's really good. So, all right.
All right. Thank you.
All right.